Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year to everyone. This is the final episode of 366 2020. We have a few stragglers to wrap up, then we'll talk about the project and what it means for the future of this channel. Let's get started with Eye in the Sky stars Helen Mirren as a colonel in the British Armed Forces who has been tracking a terrorist for years. She finally has the opportunity to hunt down this terrorist and end his life, and needs to navigate the waters of political people and other countries' military to get this mission done. And this is a slick little thriller, and by little I mean this focuses on this minor conflict in the middle of a bigger war. It's really hyper-focused on this one incident, which means you learn the ins and outs of this one incident, the players, what their motivations are. And it's a tight little thriller. There's some pretty thrilling sequences here. The first time I came across it, it was dumped on Amazon Prime and Hulu, which is where I watched it. But I think it's kind of an overlooked gem. Steve McQueen, The Man in Le Mans is a documentary film about the making of the movie Le Mans starring Steve McQueen, hence the title. Steve McQueen was the biggest movie star at the time, and he sacrificed everything to A, become a race car driver, and B, make this movie Le Mans, which didn't go very well while they were shooting it. I kind of want to leave it at that. If you like true Hollywood stories about behind the scenes of making a movie, this may be for you. It's an interesting film. What they did to shoot this thing is insane and probably would not be allowed to happen in today's day and age, if only because the film production probably couldn't get insurance. But an interesting look at a true Hollywood story. White Boy Rick is the true story of a teenage drug informant for the FBI in Detroit. This is a real true story, and I described this movie as being perfectly competent. The acting is competent, the writing competent, the direction competent, the shooting style competent. But it doesn't stand out at all. This movie is the equivalent of cinematic wallpaper. I noticed it while I was looking at it, but the minute I stopped looking at it, I forgot about it. Which is weird because it has all the story beats of what should be an emotional tale. It just doesn't have any payoff. Mostly because the story is so chock full of things that it's hard to have an emotional core with all of it. And partly because White Boy Rick actually did some crimes. And it doesn't matter how well-intentioned he was, he spent a lot of time in jail. And that's not a hero that's easy to get behind, but mostly this movie is bland. And finally, Wonder Woman 1984 is a dumpster fire. This movie is a hot mess of studio notes and tinkering and overambition and a movie studio that has no idea what they're doing with their premiere property right now. This movie is a culmination of the DCEU attempting to cram Marvel's 20+ movies worth of plot development and character development into 2.5 hours. And what happens is the film is just another in a long line of DCEU's bland, forgettable movies. And the DCEU seems to be a microcosm of what's happening at Warner. You have directors sniping at the studio making decisions without informing their creators. It's just a mess, and this is not unique, and this will not end anytime soon. So there it is, 324 movies in 366 days. Thank God it was a leap year. Not bad, it's kind of a fail, but not terrible. Pretty much a fail. What have we learned here?
I guess we learned not to do it again.
Yes, sir.
I'm fucked if I know what we did.
Yes, sir. It's hard to say.
Okay, I've had a week or so of self-reflection over the last year. What went wrong? What could I do to be better next year? So on and so forth. And I've broken it down to two main problems. One is mathematical, one is mental. We'll start with mathematical. 366 movies is a modest ask for most critics. Most professional movie critics watch between 500 and 1,500 movies a year. But it is their full-time job. I have a full-time job that takes me away from this establishment 10 hours a day. So when I got behind, it was relatively hard to catch up. Editing takes time, talking to the camera takes time, away from actually watching the films. If I wasn't reviewing every movie, this would have been a little easier because the time making graphics, the time uploading to YouTube, so on and so forth, wouldn't have eaten into the time that I could be watching movies. Then you run into a problem that, let's say we're 5 behind. We have to watch 5 movies on a Saturday. Well, then I have to review those 5 movies and edit those 5 movies into a video, so on and so forth. So the farther you get behind and the more you try to catch up, the farther you get behind in the video production part of it. So I kind of learned that getting behind is very, very bad. And then I had a whole set of problems that affected me emotionally. I don't think I'm unique in saying, and I'm probably beating a dead horse at this point in time, that 2020 sucked. Even aside from a global pandemic, there were times that I just woke up and started scrolling on Twitter just to look at a news feed and just stared at it all day. I got sucked into the vacuum. And all I could do is look in horror at what was happening in the world, and I just had no motivation to watch a movie. Between a pandemic and a couple of COVID scares, a grandparent dying, and just abject horror at what is happening in the world, 2020 was not great. But my biggest problem emotionally was my lack of want to. There are days that I come home from work and I just don't want to do anything. Except sitting in front of the PS4 and playing Madden, I guess. But 100% of that deficit of want to is attributed to my job. And it's not that I don't love my job, it just affects how I create on YouTube. I don't think I've ever talked about what I do for a living, and it's not out of a sense of secrecy or whatever. It just hasn't come up in conversation yet. So here it is. I am a television director and professional editor. The media guy, not just a clever name. So when I get home from sitting in front of an editor for 8 hours, the last thing I want to do is sit in front of another editor. My day job is my night job, so I get burned out easily. And it's not because I don't love either of them, it's just because it's a lot. And until 2020, I haven't really tried to find a solution for this. And in December, I found it, and it was stupidly easy how I did it. It just came down to, when I come home from work at night, watch the movie then instead of in the morning. Then the movie is an escape from editing and doing the stuff I do on a day-to-day basis, and then wake up in the morning and do my editing for this channel when I'm fresh. And it worked really well, and I feel dumb for not having tried it before. So that's what I'm going to do moving forward. What this means for this channel is, while this show specifically is going away, I am going to try to keep watching movies at the same pace. And what might happen is, instead of 3 movies at a time, doing a wrap-up video at the end of the week, probably uploaded on Sunday. In that way, I can mention in passing movies that I felt were mediocre instead of trying to milk a long review out of them. Sometimes a movie is just meh, and they're hard to talk about when you don't have any emotion for them at all. If I do a wrap-up video at the end of the week, I feel like I can spend more time on the stuff I thought were very good or the stuff I thought were very bad, and kind of just say, I watched this, but I didn't feel anything, and let that be the review. And in that way, I can also talk about what else I've been watching, TV shows, listening to music, whatever. And since this show is going away, it also means that there's going to be an uptick in other content. Yes, that means DTMS is coming back. There's been one on the back burner for a very long time that I need to finish. It is the bread and butter of this channel, let's just face it. So there will be more of that. There's also other videos I want to do, more spotlight movie-related content, but more focused on a single movie instead of how that movie sucks. So look for that coming soon. But I did want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for making 2020 fun. To the handful of you that watched these videos, thank you so much for indulging me. And those of you who hung out in the comments and threw out your thoughts on whatever I might have watched, thank you so much. This has been great. I didn't expect these to get huge numbers, but you guys have been great in your reaction to these videos, so I thank you so much for watching, and look for more coming soon. Thanks, guys. Happy 2021! Thank God that's over.